The importance of exports to the U.S. beef industry has been well documented, and the staff and leadership of the U.S. Meat Export Federation help ensure demand for our product overseas. Joining us now to discuss these efforts is Dan Hallstrom. He's president and CEO of the U.S. Meat Export Federation. Dan, 2021 was an absolute record year for U.S. beef exports. Tell us a little bit about that success and what drove that success.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. When the stats come in finalized next week, we're going to be at a record. We're going to be up 15% on the volume, and the value is going to come in at about 10.5 billion globally. And I think it's really that the story here is about global broad-based growth. It's not any one country that's contributing. It's China, it's Japan, it's Korea, it's Mexico, it's Central America, it's South America. There's a lot of markets adding value here and rebounding from the pandemic from the last 2 years. So I think in that respect, it's really hitting on all cylinders. It's the eating at home, the retail growth booming like it has been in the U.S., booming around the world. But the e-commerce platforms, the online, the delivery platforms, the pickup platforms, it's growing in the U.S., but in places like Korea, Korea is the highest participant in e-commerce in the world. So this is a lot of the growth that we're seeing. And the really exciting thing is that we're still struggling in Asia today with COVID, and food service is still struggling. There's going to be a little bit of a rebound in food service, we think, as we go forward as well.
So let's talk 2022. Can we expect these continued trends to continue?
Well, there's a lot of uncertainty, as you know, out there. But our forecast is for growth, a new record in 2022. We're looking at 4 or 5% growth. So albeit at a slower rate, but still growing. And once again, there's every reason to expect that there's going to be a lot of countries contributing.
We've had some challenges, though, this last year, particularly in getting products to and from these markets, right? Tell us a little bit about that and what progress is being made in that area.
Yeah, the global supply chain is really challenged, and it has been now for probably close to a year. We're having frozen cargo on the beef side delayed. We're having chilled cargo delayed, which is very problematic. We have a reputation as a reliable global supplier, and that's a little bit at risk today. That's the bad news. The good news is that there's a lot more focus on this issue. We're getting this recent announcement out of USDA with Oakland is key for us because in our chilled cargo, a lot of the chilled cargo, chilled beef out of the U.S., it goes to Asia, usually goes out of Oakland. Why? It's the last port of call before you go to Japan and Korea. So this announcement of the expanded area for the terminal, more movement, more area to get the containers moved around, was music to our ears because that is probably our most strategic port on the chilled side.
So tell us about some emerging markets. What markets offer the most potential for growth in your opinion?
Yeah, I think this is always one of the things that at USMEF we're focused on. While on one side we want to make hay where the sun shines in some of the established markets, we're always talking about how do we develop some new regions. And I'll give you a couple of examples. Central America, for one. We have a CAFTA agreement in the region. We're on a level playing field, and we're really starting to see U.S. beef take off in places like Guatemala, El Salvador, and Panama. South America, Colombia, we have a free trade agreement with Colombia. Colombia started out 6-7 years ago primarily a pork market, U.S. pork market, but now we're starting to see that diversification into the beef side as well. So this is how markets start, and now you add up the business, and you're talking about several $100 million in two regions that were virtually nothing 5 years ago. Another part of the world that we're excited about is Africa as a whole. Huge market for beef variety meats. In fact, beef variety meats globally will be over 10% of our sales in 2021. So of our 10 billion, over $1 billion is beef variety meats. And this is tongues going to Japan, it's livers going to Egypt, it's tripe going to Latin America. So it's adding value to the carcass.
And the beautiful thing about that is it really diversifies our risk because we're not solely dependent on one product or one market, right?
Exactly right. It's no different than your retirement fund. You don't want all your eggs in in one basket. Having multiple countries growing at the same time is very healthy for the U.S. beef industry.
Well, I'm sure no two international markets are alike, and I'm curious, can you share with our viewers what are the kinds of things that USMEF does in order to both identify and then address the very unique needs of these disparate markets across the world?
Yeah, I'd say the two biggest things that USMEF's involved in is, number one, education, telling our story. We go in and we research a market, but at the same time, we're telling our story. And it's a great story, and it's a story very unique to a lot of other supply sources around the world. Brazilian beef production, Australian beef production, Indian buffalo meat production. I mean, you're talking about completely different stories. Yeah. And by the way, we don't want to be the cheapest player around, so we're talking about the value side of it and the experience side. So that's number one. Number two is, when we're in these markets, we're always developing relationships with the trade. Importers, distributors, retailers, food service, the list goes on. So this is not something that happens overnight. This is a long-term venture. And in a place like Japan, we've been doing it for almost 50 years. And in a place like Durban, South Africa, we've been doing it for 3. But I'll guarantee you that a place like Africa is going to look much more important in the years to come. So yeah, this is what we're focused on each and every day.
Very exciting news. I'm sure we'll be talking with you more throughout the year, but in the meantime, please thank your entire staff for all they do to add value to the U.S. beef industry.
Yeah, thank you, Kevin.
To learn more about the work of the U.S. Meat Export Federation and its efforts to enhance U.S. beef demand overseas, just visit their website. That's usmef.org.